Hey, what's up? This is MAFO, and in this video we are gonna take a deep dive into algoBEAT. This is an algorithmic drum sequencer I just released for Maxful Live. It has 4 different algorithms to create rhythmic patterns, a random engine to generate new patterns, and 16 values that you can map to any available parameter in Ableton or VST plugin. This is a MIDI effect device, so it doesn't make any sound by itself. So I'm going to use the DS Kick device. Let me add some triggers and let's go into it. You can have some information of each parameter in the info view by hovering over any parameter, and you will see a short description of it. So first we have this switch right here where you can turn on and off the sequencer output. It only affects the output, and as you can see, the sequencer keeps running. This is to keep it synced to Ableton or to any other time-based device in the session. Next we have this text right here that you can edit, and this is useful when you have multiple instances of algoBEAT in the session. Right here we can change the speed of the sequencer, and we can divide or multiply that speed. So right now it's set to 16 notes. I can divide that so it will go slower. Or I can multiply that and it will go faster. And it is useful if you want like irregular rhythmic values. You can put like 5 or 7, and you will divide any of these values by 5 or 7, any value up to 8. Next we have this menu right here where you can select the 4 different algorithms that will create different rhythmic patterns. First we have Modulo, which is an algorithm that I'm working on, which is a kind of an extension of the Euclidean algorithm. And speaking of the Euclidean algorithm, we have it here. The binary algorithm, it basically fits binary numbers into a fixed length. Next we have the random the random algorithm, which fills the pattern in a random way. And with this dice right here, you can generate a new pattern. And with this button right here, you can lock this pattern so it doesn't get affected by the random generator. And this will make more sense once we get into the random engine part. But as you can see, this dice and this lock toggle is just for the random algorithm. So basically this, the modulo algorithm, contains all the Euclidean patterns, but it has interpolations between all the Euclidean patterns. So for instance, this is an Euclidean pattern. And next we have this is the next Euclidean pattern. Then we have this. So it contains all the Euclidean patterns, but as you can see, it contains some patterns in between as well. This is a work in progress, an algorithm I'm developing and researching, so I may change the name later, or I may change the algorithm later, and I will write about it. Next, in this section right here, you can select the direction of the sequence. So you can go forward, backward, both forward and backward. But once it gets into the last step, it will return. And we have this forward and backward option, but in this case, it will always bounce when it reaches the first step. So that's the difference between this one and this one. And last, we have the random direction that will go randomly into any step. By the way, the circle is just for visual feedback, so it doesn't respond to any click or drag. Next, we have this switch that flips the sequence. That means that all the active steps will become inactive and all the inactive steps will become active. So it can be useful to like make some fills and some variations in your patterns. And right here we can set the length of the sequence from 1 step up to 32 steps. this is the fill parameter. It will go from one active step to all active steps. And we have this parameter that will rotate the resulting pattern. And by the way, the fill and the rotate parameters are always adapted to the number of steps. So it doesn't matter how many steps you have. It doesn't matter if you only have a few steps. The fill and the rotate parameters will adapt to the number of steps. So you can use all the slider from the minimum to the maximum value. Next, we have the trigger conditions that will tell the sequencer when to play according to the number of repetitions. So by default, it plays all the repetitions. But if we set this to 2, that means that it will only sound in the first of every 2 repetitions. And you can put any number from 1 up to 16. And this is very useful to add variation to your patterns. Another parameter that is very useful to that is the probability parameter. By default, it's set to 100%, so that means that it will always sound. But if we set it to 50%, for example, that means that now every active trigger has 50% chances to sound. Next, we have the ratchet parameter, which will add a retrigger to each active trigger. Right here we can set the note. The DS kick device doesn't receive MIDI pitch information, but let me open a piano, for example. And so right here you can set any note value. Any velocity value. And any duration value. The duration value depends on the selected speed. Next, we have the mode values that you can map to any available parameter in Ableton or VST plugin by clicking this button right here. And next, clicking the parameter you want to control. The first parameter you click after clicking on this button will be the one that will be mapped. Let me return to the DS kick device and let's map some parameters. Maybe you don't want to go all the way from the minimum to the maximum. Maybe you want only to go from a certain range. And right here you can set a range. So for example, I'm going to map it to the panning, and it will be more evident right here. If you set a smaller range, it will only move into that range. Let's map some other values right here. And right here you can save patterns. You can save them with this button right here, and you can load them with this other button right here, and you can give them any name. Let's do something different. Okay. And let's save it into the slot number 2. But let's name it pattern 2. Let's save it. And now we can go from one pattern to other. With this button right here, you can minimize and maximize the mode section. So if you are not going to use it, or if you have finished to set it up, you can minimize it and you can save space. Next, we have this button where you can open the random engine settings. From right here, you can randomize all the pattern values or all the mod values, or both at the same time. Everything at the same time. You can turn on all those parameters that you want to be affected by the random engine, and you can randomize everything at the same time, really. but there will be cases where you don't want that. So now I'm going to talk about the master control device that is like an extension of algoBEAT that will affect all the algoBEAT instances in the session. So I'm going to create 3 instances. I'm going to use a drum rack, and I'm going to sequence a kick, a snare, and a hi-hat, all from the DS stock collection. The first algoBEAT will play a C1, the next a C sharp 1, and the next a D1. I always like to add a limiter just in case. We can give them names. By the way, you can choose the UI colors right here. There are 2 different colors in the UI interface, or you can just hit these dice until you get a combination of colors that you like. And now with the master control, I can generate new patterns for all the algoBEATs in the session at the same time. You can load and save patterns to all the algoBEATs at the same time. You can randomize only the patterns, only the modes, or all at the same time. And finally, if you map the available parameters, now every time you randomize, you will have new sounds as well. Let's do that for all the sound. For example, we can save that pattern. We can generate something new. And I will save it to slot number 2. And now we can change from one pattern to other. And all the algoBEATs will change at the same time. You can change the master control color as well. And well, I think this is it. This is very useful for jamming. Let's try different algorithms. Oh, by the way, all the parameters are available to map it to a MIDI control, and you can automate them as well. This is it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you like this device. I hope you find it useful for jamming, for producing. So please let me know any suggestion you have or any problem or issue with this device. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.